The singleton pattern should really be called Onlyton because it allows us to create the only instance of a class ever. Da Vinci's Mona Lisa is a real-life example of singleton in real life. There is only one Mona Lisa that was drawn by Da Vinci. As for the programming example, even if you ask a question, you'll probably be yelled at to never ever use singleton in your codebase. It is very unlikely though that you'll be writing one of these singleton patterns by yourself, but it is good to be able to spot and understand them if you're working in an older codebase.
Give me the code.
First, we create a class. Let's call it singleton. Then we want to create a static field with the type of this class, singleton. We can name it instance. You will see why we want to do that in a sec. Then we create a private constructor for this class. The private keyword in Java just means that it is only accessible from within the class. Defining the private constructor also makes us not being able to use the public constructor. That's how we prevent people from instantiating any instances of the class. But we need to be able to instantiate exactly one. So let's write a new static method and call it getInstance. The static keyword allows us to execute the method on the class without having to instantiate the class. In the getInstance method, we first check if the instance field is null. Null means that we never assigned any value to it. Before our first execution, the instance field will be null indeed. So we would want to instantiate the new instance of the singleton class using its private constructor. And then we just return the instance. If we now test it and try to instantiate the class in a regular way by using the new keyword, our project won't even build because there is no public singleton constructor that takes no arguments. That's because we made it private, remember? Now let's add a print statement to the getInstance method. So every time a new instance is created, we would get a message printed to the console. And then let's call the getInstance method 3 times. Ideally, only one message should be printed. And indeed, only one message was printed. The only issue is this code has a problem. Yep, 13 lines of code and it already has a problem. Welcome to my world. Think about what happens when 2 threads attempt to call the getInstance method at the same time for the first time. Each of them enters the method, checks that the instance is null, and both of them create a new instance. And now instead of singleton, we get a doubleton. That's no bueno when we're trying to ensure that we have the only instance of singleton class created. It is quite easy to fix in Java though. Just add a synchronized keyword right after the static keyword in the method definition. What will happen now is that each thread will have to wait its turn in line before it can enter the method. So after the first thread created an instance, the second thread should be able to see that the instance was already created and return the existing instance rather than creating a new one. There is still a potential issue though. What do you think happens when you introduce lock into the system? Well, it may potentially become slower. It really depends on what exactly you're doing though, so most of the times it shouldn't be an issue. If it does become an issue though, you can use what's called a double-checked login. And it's just a bit more code. First, we introduce another keyword, volatile, and we add that keyword to the instance variable. This will allow different threads to always get the updated value of this variable if its value has changed. Then we can change how we use the synchronize keyword. Instead of doing it each time and basically locking the path for other threads until we're finished, we can only do that if the instance is null, which is really what we want. Just do it one time. To do that, let's remove the synchronize keyword from the method definition and add it right after we check that the instance is null, and follow that with the name of the class that we want to synchronize on. That's singleton in our case. Finally, we check again if the instance is null to make sure no other threads have set it already before we create a new singleton class instance. Hence where the name came from. Double-checked locking. Now we can test that after changing the program it still works, and if you want to know the best practices for programming a remote controller, then watch the next video about the command pattern.